I'll give you one wish, anything you want, if you can figure this out in 5 minutes. I was at a close friend's wedding when I suddenly ran into Kimberly, a beautiful old middle school classmate. She used to think I was her competition and always had a harsh tongue. And now here she was asking me a challenging question. Everyone around us was stunned by the question, and she grinned self-assuredly. However, I merely stated, I don't even require 5 minutes. I've figured it out already. I am 30 years old and my name is Kevin. I am employed by a certain firm. I'm not married and I don't have a girlfriend. You should hurry up and get married, my coworkers frequently advise, but I have my doubts about marriage in general. It's most likely a result of how my life has developed thus far. I grew up in a typical middle-class household. Like any other child, I was lavished with attention by my parents when I was a child. However, parents started pressuring me into rigorous academic training as soon as I started primary school. I eventually asked them why so much had changed when I got to the upper grades. When I was younger, things weren't like this. Why are you forcing me to work so hard in my studies and become fixated on my grades? They explained that they had struggled in life because of their lack of education. They didn't want me to face the same hardships, so they pushed me toward middle school entrance exams and aimed to get me into a prestigious school that had a direct path to college. The daily grind of studying was exhausting, but it helped me develop a solid foundation in many subjects. Thanks to that, I passed the middle school entrance exam without much trouble and was admitted to a private middle school. However, my parents' educational efforts weren't limited to academics. They also made sure I got regular exercise, so by the time I graduated elementary school, I was noticeably more athletic than most of my peers. Some classmates resented me for it, but I didn't pay attention to their opinions. I had to live up to my parents' expectations. This caused me to drift apart from even my close friends toward the end of elementary school, but it didn't bother me. Or rather, I couldn't afford to let it bother me since I was so focused on meeting my parents' expectations. The middle school I enrolled in was a prestigious institution known for being attended by the children of wealthy families, politicians, and corporate executives. At such a prestigious school, I clearly stood out. Even so, my grades were decent enough that some people envied me. Look at him, always wearing cheap clothes. Yeah, this school is for elites. He's so bold for a poor kid. He's probably here to suck up to us like his family told him to. His presence lowers the class of the school. It was obvious to anyone that I didn't belong. I expected as much from the moment I got in, so it didn't faze me. But one person who couldn't tolerate it was Kimberly, the daughter of a company president who led a group that didn't like me. She could never beat me on tests and always got frustrated about it, declaring me her rival on her own terms. Next time, I'll definitely be on top. I didn't take Kimberly seriously at all, but she kept pestering me so persistently that rumors started to spread among some people that we were actually dating. No way. How on earth could anyone look at us and think we're a couple? Give me a break. Even friends who talked to me because of my good grades started asking about my relationship with Kimberly, and I had no idea how to handle it. Both Kimberly and I firmly denied such rumors with visible annoyance, but I never understood why she was so fixated on me. Then, when I was in my third year of middle school, winter break arrived. That's when my father's company went bankrupt and our family's financial situation plummeted. I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. We're family. We'll get through this together. Mom's right, Dad. If there's anything I can do to help, just say the word. Thank you, Kin, but you're still just a kid. I promise I'll make sure you can at least graduate. Thanks, Dad, but don't push yourself too hard. Even though we promised not to overdo it, my father ended up borrowing money to scrape together enough for me to finish middle school. On the night of my graduation ceremony, when we should have been celebrating, my father bowed his head to me. Dad, what's wrong? Kevin, I'm truly sorry. Sorry? I just can't. I can't keep paying for high school tuition. With tears welling up in his eyes, he laid bare the harsh reality. It's okay. I already knew, I said. That's why I talked to my homeroom teacher and the school chairman. I told them I'd be giving up on high school because of our financial struggles. Knowing I couldn't burden my parents any further, I had already decided and informed the school before graduation. I'm really sorry we forced our values onto you. Don't worry about it. I know you've always acted with my best interests in mind. That's why we'll keep working together, the three of us, as a family. Yeah, you're right. Looks like our son just cheered us up. Yeah, he really did. Seeing even a small smile return to my parents' faces at that moment made me genuinely happy. What I didn't tell them, though, was that I honestly dreaded continuing school. The thought of enduring more snide remarks from classmates made me feel relieved to step away. Besides, it's not like anyone would care if I wasn't around anymore. Afterward, people reportedly found it odd that I didn't show up for high school, but thanks to the school's respect for family privacy, no one ever found out my circumstances. Naturally, not even Kimberly, who used to pick on me, learned about what happened with my parents. Facing mounting debt, I couldn't let them shoulder the burden alone. I started working part-time jobs, lying about my age to get hired. Fortunately, I looked mature for my age and managed to juggle multiple jobs. Thanks to my physical strength, I worked tirelessly day and night. However, even by working multiple jobs in a single day, it's still just a part-time wage. It barely makes a dent in paying off the debt. Still, I pushed myself harder, determined to help sustain our family's life. But my father, caught in a vicious cycle of debt, eventually turned to loan sharks. I can't do this anymore. I'm so sorry. You don't need to apologize. Yeah, Dad. I'll work even harder. Together with my mother, I encouraged my father to keep trying harder. At that moment, my father gave us a smile and said, "You're right." But tragedy struck soon after. When the debt became unbearable and there was no way out, my parents decided to take their lives, dragging me with them. By some cruel twist of fate, I was the only one who survived. When I woke up in the hospital, I lost control. Doctors and nurses had to restrain me as I struggled. I was sedated and slowly drifted into unconsciousness. In those moments, I thought, why me? Why was I the only one left? Why did Dad and Mom get to rest while I was left behind? Is God telling me to keep going? Please stop. I'm tired too. Let me go where they are. I'm begging you. With those thoughts racing through my mind, I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, I was consumed by despair. The scars on my body were a permanent reminder, and I began to resent my parents for escaping and leaving me behind. After that, since I was still a minor, I ended up living in a facility for a while. However, having fallen into deep distrust of people, I never opened up to anyone around me. Naturally, no one wanted to approach me after seeing my closed-off attitude. But there was one exception, a boy my age named Steven. No matter how much I ignored him, he persistently kept talking to me. "You're a strange guy, you know that?" "Oh, you finally talked. It's because you're annoying." "Well, whatever. I'm Steven. Nice to meet you. Can I call you Kevin?" "Do whatever you want." With just a few words exchanged, Steven became overly familiar and started talking to me more and more. Without being asked, he began sharing his own story. Steven had been abandoned by his parents before he could even remember their faces and had grown up almost entirely in the facility. If you don't even remember their faces, isn't that better in a way? "Yeah, I guess so. I hate them. They left me behind and went on their way." "Yeah, that's rough too. But hey, why don't you get back at them? Get back at them." When I looked at him, wondering what he meant, Steven gave me a wide grin. "Yeah, they might have had an easy way out, but you can live a better, happier life and prove them wrong." Well, I guess that's not such a bad idea. Bonding over our shared experiences of losing the parent lottery, Steven and I gradually became close friends, so close that I could even call him my best friend. Someone like me, who rarely opened up to anyone and Steven even got along, seemed to put the adults at the facility somewhat at ease. Even so, I mostly avoided interacting with others, only talking to Steven. One day, however, a wealthy man named Andrew approached me, expressing his interest in becoming my foster parent. "No way, Steven's here and I don't want to be taken in by anyone." "Now come on, don't say that. I really want to take you in, Kevin." I said no. Go find someone else. I was adamant about staying with Steven and fiercely resisted Andrew's advances. But he kept coming back to the facility daily, trying to persuade me. Every time, I would turn him away. I noticed Steven always seemed like he had something to say, but since he never spoke up, I didn't ask him about it. This routine continued for about a month. Finally, one day I lost my patience with Andrew, who was visiting again. "You're so annoying, old man. I hate rich people." "Hey, Kevin, it's fine." "Steven, you're right. Money doesn't guarantee happiness, but you shouldn't underestimate what money can do either. For instance, I could use my money to buy 10 years of your time right now." He pulled out a wad of cash from his bag and smirked, flashing the bills in front of me. Disgusted, I sneered and muttered, "What a sleazebag." "Well, I'm selfish, you see. I don't want a partner, but I do want a kid. That said, I'm not asking you to see me as your father. If you could humor this rich man's whim for a while, I'd be grateful." He leaned in suddenly and reached out his hand toward me. "What the hell are you been talking about?" "Ha, you'll understand in time." "Yeah, no clue what you mean, Kevin." "I also think you should go with this person. You've been chosen by the god of wealth. If you don't grab this opportunity now, you'll be stuck at the bottom forever." Steven suddenly blurted out, raising his voice. "Steven, but I'll catch up to you someday." Steven gave me a big, confident grin, and though I hesitated, he firmly placed my hand in Andrew's. "Andrew, Kevin's a handful, but I'm counting on you to take care of him." He bowed his head to Andrew and guided my hand into his grip. "Fine, I'll play along with your rich man's whim." "Thank you. All right, I'll get the paperwork started right away. Just wait for me here." Yeah. Go do whatever you want. Realizing there was no escaping this, I reluctantly accepted being taken in by Andrew. That's great, Kevin. This is mostly your fault, you know. Oh, come on. It's fine, isn't it? Just make sure to catch up with me, all right? Of course. I extended my hand to Stephen for a handshake, and he smiled as he firmly shook it. From then on, I started living with Andrew as he had promised from the start. Andrew didn't demand anything of me, nor did he try to play the role of father. It was so exactly as he had said that I almost felt deflated. Oh, Kevin, we'll start studying next week, okay? I've already done a fair bit back at the facility. Not enough. If you're going to step out into society, it doesn't hurt to have a solid education and some credentials to your name. Oh, a hassle. Now, don't say that. True to his word, Andrew used his financial resources and personal connections to get me access to higher education and imparted much of his own knowledge to me. Once I started studying in earnest, I found myself enjoying the process of learning new things. Andrew taught me so much that I couldn't help but get drawn in, eager to listen and absorb it all. It felt like I was moving to the rhythm of Andrew's plans, but at some point, I didn't mind anymore. Before I knew it, the promised 10 years had passed. On the anniversary of those 10 years, Andrew congratulated me. You've done well. But it's easy for someone like me. Oh, stop it. All right, now for the main event. Today marks exactly 10 years. The deal's done. From this moment on, you're free. Go wherever you want. Ha! Wait, what are you talking about? Come on, everything's ready. Off you go. With that, Andrew handed me a small amount of luggage and some cash, practically shoving me out of the house. Standing outside the gate, I found myself dumbfounded. Wait. That's way too whimsical even for him. What the hell is he thinking? Then I grasped the situation in an instant and let out a scream. However, I knew that screaming wouldn't change anything. For now, I found myself a cheap apartment and started living alone. A few years later, I received wonderful news. Stephen, with whom I'd kept in touch since leaving the facility, had successfully launched his own business and was getting married. That guy, he really pulled it off. When I received the wedding invitation from Stephen, I considered sending him a congratulatory message right away, but thinking he was probably busy, I decided to save my words for the big day. I bought a suit for the wedding, picked out a gift for Stephen, and looked forward to the day with excitement. The wedding itself was a grand affair befitting Stephen's success. I hadn't expected such a large-scale event and was struck by the size and splendor of it all. As the ceremony progressed and we moved into the reception hall, I spotted someone among the bride's friends that left me stunned. It was Kimberly, the daughter of a company president and my middle school classmate who had disliked me. Wait, is that Kimberly? The last time I had seen her, she still had a youthful appearance, but now she was even more stunning than I remembered, and I couldn't help but stare. As I watched her, I thought for a moment that our eyes met, and I quickly looked away. Did she notice me? No. It's been years. There's no way she'd recognize me. But Kimberly, having clearly recognized me, approached without hesitation. Well, if it isn't Kevin. What a coincidence meeting you here. Ah, yeah, it's really been a long time. Caught off guard by Kimberly addressing me, I managed to return the greeting while keeping my composure. I always wondered why you disappeared after middle school when we got to high school. Oh yeah, sorry about that. It was due to family circumstances. Well, I figure as much. Your family seemed pretty poor after all. Haha, I'll let you imagine whatever you want. I gave her a vague response, expecting her to bring this up sooner or later. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the table where Kimberly had been sitting. It was full of familiar faces. Some of them began whispering. Hey, isn't that? Oh, those girls are here too. Brings back memories. Weren't they the ones who used to flatter Kimberly all the time? As I dubbed through my memories, Stephen suddenly called out. Hey, Kevin. Huh? What is it? I snapped out of my thoughts as Stephen waved me over with urgency. After excusing myself from Kimberly, I walked toward him. The moment I got close, Stephen grabbed my shoulder. Wait a second, are you actually acquainted with Kimberly? Yeah. I mean, kind of. It's been years, though. Stephen leaned in and whispered something to me, and I replied while reminiscing about the past. I was honestly amazed that Kimberly remembered me after nearly 15 years. Still, I couldn't help but wonder how Stephen knew her. Oh, Kimberly is one of my wife's friends from college, and get this, she passed the Tokyo University entrance exam as an external applicant in high school. Apparently, she even won Miss Tokyo University while she was there. Miss Tokyo University, huh? And I heard she went to one of those elite schools where you could ride the escalator from middle school to university, but she still chose to take the external exam. Isn't that incredible? She's definitely something. By the way, the reason I know her is that we went to the same middle school. I admitted this with a wry smile. Well, you were always smart too. The world really is small, huh? Yeah, yes it is. Well, at least now I know your brains weren't a fluke. Stephen gave me a mischievous grin. Matching his grin, I laughed as we continued chatting. The host announced the start of the entertainment segment. I excused myself and quickly tried to return to my seat, but Kimberly, now holding a microphone, called out to stop me. Wait a minute, Kevin. What now? Hearing my name suddenly called out, I felt all eyes in the room shift to me. It was just like middle school all over again. I sighed internally, dreading what was coming next. Oblivious to my frustration, Kimberly pressed on. You thought you could escape me back in middle school, didn't you? Well, let's see if you can beat me now. This was supposed to be a group puzzle game for everyone, but I decided to change it to a one-on-one match with you. Hey, you can't just change the plans like that. This isn't even your wedding. Oh, don't worry, I've got permission from the bride and groom. I glanced over at Stephen, who gave me an overly cheerful smile. Judging by that smile, Stephen is definitely enjoying himself. Suppressing the urge to groan, I sighed audibly. Kimberly, apparently oblivious, continued speaking. If you can solve this problem in 5 minutes, I'll grant you one wish, anything you want. A problem? As I responded, Kimberly handed me a sheet of paper. I glanced at it briefly before sighing again, this time louder. I don't even need 5 minutes. It's already solved. Seriously, what's the point of this? What? No way, you already solved it. Kimberly looked completely stunned, staring at me in disbelief. Kimberly's reaction was so unexpected that I almost burst out laughing. This paper, wasn't it supposed to be part of a random draw game? Did you even know what was written on it when you gave me this problem, or were you just planning to propose to a random person here? I glanced at her with a mix of amusement and reproach. What? Let me see that. Kimberly, visibly flustered, snatched the paper from my hand and checked it herself. This says. Her eyes darted nervously across the page, clearly struggling to make sense of it. It's in Spanish. Roughly translated, it says, I love you, marry me now. I said that in a small voice. Immediately, Kimberly's face started turning red. At the same time, the room erupted in soft laughter, and I couldn't help but add, looks like someone set you up, huh? I directed my gaze toward Kimberly's table. Kimberly, now livid, shoved the paper back at me and stormed over to her table. Hey, what's the big idea? Her former classmate sitting there smirked mischievously and shot back. Oh, we just brought your wishes to life. Just says you're rich and pretty. You thought you could have everything your way, huh? Talk about delusional. You didn't even notice everyone laughing at you behind your back. And seriously, you can't even read Spanish. Guess you're not as perfect as you thought. Perpetual second-place queen. Kimberly's friends, undeterred by her glare, laughed mockingly one after another. Perhaps she hadn't expected such words from her own friends, and Kimberly clenched her fists and looked down. The tension between them quickly turned the celebratory atmosphere of the venue into something much darker. Stephen, sorry, but I need to step out for a bit. Yeah, don't worry. I'll handle things here. I quickly excused myself and rushed over to Kimberly, grabbing her hand and leading her out of the room. The host was momentarily bewildered, but as expected of a professional, they quickly regained control and smoothly continued the wedding reception without a hitch. Meanwhile, I left the venue and brought Kimberly to the waiting room. Now alone with me, Kimberly looked down awkwardly, avoiding my gaze. Hey, is that promise still valid? You know the one about granting me a wish if I solve the problem. And while we're at it, mind telling me why you used to bother me so much back in middle school? Not to borrow the words from that earlier proposal, but I couldn't help asking. Kimberly, even though it brings back unpleasant memories, I've always wondered why Kimberly, who was admired so much by everyone around her, chose to focus on me. After staring at me for a moment and taking a deep breath, Kimberly seemed to resign herself and began revealing her past. You probably already know, but I've always been overestimated because of my family background and appearance. Yeah, I figured as much. Whenever I achieved something, people assumed I could do anything, but to me, that was nothing but pressure. I felt like if I admitted I couldn't do something, everyone would abandon me. I was terrified of being seen as a disappointment, so I worked tirelessly to meet their expectations. Sounds like you had it rough. I also had intense pressure from my parents back then, so in a way, I can understand how Kimberly feels. For now, I decided to just listen to Kimberly until she let everything out. You wouldn't understand. At first, I was doing fine after starting middle school, but then you came along and took the top spot, leaving me stuck in second place. I couldn't understand why I couldn't beat you no matter how hard I tried. I became obsessed with figuring you out, so I followed you around trying to outsmart you. That explains a lot, but back then, I was just as desperate. My parents were working so hard to send me to that school, and I couldn't let them down. But there's more, isn't there? I could tell you were struggling with something else. You're too perceptive. Fine, As I spent time around you, I started to like you. What? You liked me? Her words caught me completely off guard. I stared at her, utterly bewildered. Kimberly, admired by everyone. Upperclassmen, underclassmen, even the teachers, was interested in me? No way. As I silently thought that can't be true, Kimberly continued to speak. But how could I admit that? We acted like rivals and I was constantly pestering you. Besides, my friends would say things like, Kimberly has higher standards. There's no way she'd settle for him. He's not even in her league. They made sure I knew my place. So they were holding you back too? I didn't want to lose their approval. I knew deep down that most of them didn't genuinely like me. The boys only cared about my looks and family, and no one ever tried to understand who I really was. I didn't choose to be born into a rich family, you know. Kimberly's voice trembled as she revealed her insecurities. Hearing her, I couldn't help but remember Andrew's words. Having money doesn't guarantee happiness. Am I seriously remembering Andrew's words at a time like this? Did I really let that guy get to me? As the thought crossed my mind, I lightly patted Kimberly's head. Kimberly noticed the scars on my wrist and gasped. What? Wait, what happened to your wrist? Oh, this? How should I put it? Youthful recklessness? Or maybe you could call it proof that I'm the one left behind. I tried to sound casual, but the weight of the truth made me hesitate. Kimberly, however, wasn't satisfied. She frowned, crossing her arms. Tell me the whole story. I told you everything about myself, didn't I? It's only fair if you do the same. Seeing her pout like that, I sighed and reluctantly opened up about my past. I told her about my family's poverty, my father's company going bankrupt, and how we couldn't afford my high school tuition. I explained how I had lied about my age to take on part-time jobs to support the family, and then my dad borrowed money from places he shouldn't have. When he couldn't pay it back, I paused, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Even after all these years, recalling those events made my body tremble. You don't have to say it. Just seeing the scars, I understand what happened. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. But what if you just told me back then? Maybe I could have helped you. Kimberly probably said it without any ill intent, but it was completely off the mark, so I pointed it out to her. See, that's what I mean. That's your bad habit, unintentionally talking down to people. Did you even realize you just put yourself on a pedestal? Yeah, I was poor, but accepting charity is humiliating, you know. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Don't worry about it. After all, I ended up relying on a rich guy anyway. I practically sold out to get where I am now, cutting corners and taking shortcuts along the way. So I don't really have the right to criticize anyone. But at least I've made peace with who I am, the good and the bad. Nobody's perfect, and you shouldn't force yourself to live up to someone else's ideal version of you. I wasn't sure if my words were encouraging or just clumsy, but it was the best I could manage. Hey, you're terrible at giving reassurance. Shut up. It's not like I do this often. As she laughed openly, I felt myself sulk a bit in return. You know what? I think I'll stop pretending to be someone I'm not. Good. You'll feel a lot better that way. Thanks, Kevin. It seemed like Kimberly had finally let go of her worries as she showed me a smile at last. Seeing her smile made my heart skip a beat for a moment, but I quickly hid it and urged her to return to the venue. When we got back, Kimberly marched straight to her friends and bowed deeply. I'm really sorry for everything. I've reflected on my actions and I want to change from now on. I want you to see me as I really am. Is that okay? Well, to be honest, we started to think we might have gone a bit too far. We knew that you were working harder than any of us, staying focused and dedicated, but we were just jealous of how you could do anything so effortlessly. So we're the ones who acted immaturely, and I'm sorry for that. Seeing them apologize to each other, I felt relieved. They had properly expressed their feelings and apologized. Kimberly and the others were now laughing together. Then, to my surprise, Tracy grabbed a microphone and, in her best imitation of a reporter, turned to Kimberly. So, Kimberly, can we take your earlier confession as your true feelings? What? Kimberly hesitated, then gave a small reply, nodding slightly. Her face was as red as a boiled octopus. Seeing this, her friends, amused, turned the microphone toward me next. And what's your answer to her public proposal, Kevin? They asked me with sly grins on their faces. When I quickly glanced around, even the bride and groom were smirking. That's when I realized I'd been set up again. Damn it. I fell for it. Stephen must have orchestrated this while I was gone. I shot Stephen a glare only to see him smirking at me and giving me a thumbs up. Seeing that I couldn't back out anymore, I had no choice but to reluctantly say, okay. Afterward, Kimberly and I exchanged contact information. We went on a few dates, and eventually, we began officially dating with marriage in mind. At that point, I decided it was time to fully disclose my background to Kimberly. Since we're getting serious, there's something I need to tell you. Huh, what is it? You've been hiding something else from me. I wouldn't say I was hiding it, but the truth is, I graduated from Key University and I work at Steven's company, the same Steven who was the groom at that wedding. Key University? And you work at the groom's company? I figured it would come out eventually, so I might as well tell you now. This is the worst. I was so happy thinking I'd finally left you in the dust, and now this? That's just unfair. Kimberly, overwhelmed by frustration, openly pouted. Watching her make such an adorable gesture, I gently patted her head. Come on, there's no need to compete anymore. You don't have to impress me. You're already amazing, beautiful, and strong just the way you are. What's with that cheesy line all of a sudden? What is it? Bad? I thought it was a pretty good line. You're so not the type to say things like that. It's kind of disappointing for some reason, Kimberly muttered with a slightly disappointed look. Oh, you're going to regret saying that. Stop it. But I guess we both weren't very honest with ourselves back then. Yeah, no kidding. Well, what's wrong with being honest now? Nothing at all. I kind of like this version of you. With a satisfied smile, Kimberly looped her arm through mine. Looking back, I once thought my life was the worst, but I found the best friend anyone could ask for, and now I've found the best partner too. Back then, Stephen used to say, you just need to find happiness and prove them wrong. I remembered that, and I'm genuinely pleased now. Thanks to the individuals who helped me along the road, I've created a bliss that transcends the simple escape my parents chose. I'll protect this happiness, so just watch me. Did you say something? I whispered gently as I raised my gaze to the sky. I quietly promised once again to make Kimberly really happy as I walked next to her.